Recording. Hello, gorgeous people. Everyone's coming in as we speak. It's so nice to see you all. Okay, you guys, we've got some new people here as well, so I'll run through the rules for those of you that aren't familiar with the call. It's so nice to have everyone here. I'm so excited about tonight's guest. Unlike a lot of calls, please leave your question in the chat box and I will filter it through as the conversation goes. Don't worry, I'm quite good at catching it, so I won't miss anything. But if you have anything you want to say directly to Mia, she is under strict instructions to ignore the chat box. But I will send her the chat after the call. So she'll get to see if you want to send her a message or something, she'll see it after the call. And thank you very much for joining. And the biggest rule of the Cup of Joe shows, very rarely broken, no questions that you could find with a quick Google search. There are hundreds and millions of webcasts and podcasts and webinars out there with like those grown-up questions, but quirky questions are always encouraged. So have at it, knock us out, see how inventive we can be tonight. And I would like to start, first of all, this is Mia Moravis, right? Mia Moravis. Yes. I told Mia that the way I first met her, she didn't even realize I had a disastrous, my one and only speed dating attempt. And if you don't know what speed dating is, a narrator gets to sit, this was online, and you have like 2 minutes to like tell them your life story, but you don't see anyone. It's just a bunch of nameless people, but they're publishers, and everyone says, oh, speed dating could make my career. So you're kind of aware that you should look good and act good and everything. Well, my face swelled up. I had an allergic reaction to the mustache cream I used to prepare for the call. My face swelled up in hives. My email completely crashed. I got the notice 3 minutes before the speed dating call, and I overstudied and overprepared, and it was a disaster. And I saw the list of names, and Mia was one of the panelists. And I mistakenly thought I knew Mia from somewhere. I was like, Mia's there. Okay, I'm just going to talk to Mia. And you have turned out to be, when you're in this world of social media and online, there are these people that are out there that are your friends. You might not have ever met them, but you just instantly feel like they're your peeps, and that's what Mia is to me. Mia is just cool. And I want to know about 10-year-old Mia before we start on your unbelievably long list of credits and accomplishments and exciting life. What about 10-year-old Mia? Did you have a clue where you were going to end up? Did you have plans? Where were you living?
A 10-year-old Mia was living in Scotland. My dad, we're Americans, my dad was in the Navy. And we were stationed over in Dunoon, Argyll County, Scotland.
Oh, wow.
And I went back in 2013 to visit my childhood home, and I went back subsequent times after that. But that's where we were. And I was an American kid who was at a private Catholic school, and we were all being educated by nuns. And one of the nuns, Sister Black, said, I won't do the Scottish accents the whole time because that gets obnoxious. But one of the nuns, Sister Black, said, we need another Highland dancer. And so I've seen you out in the playground, so we chose you. And so at that time, I was the only American child who was in the Scottish Highland Games as a Highland dancer.
Wow.
And I still have my Highland dancing shoes, and they're in the bedroom. They're framed. I had them custom framed with tartan and everything like that. So that's where 10-year-old Mia was. And we stayed there a goodly while, and then I came back to America, New England, for completing high school and, in my teens. And it was a real culture shock. But I have a dear friend to this day, Lisa, who really helped me weather that and kind of helped me fit in, because when you're a kid going over to Scotland, and we went over there wee enough, as they say, you don't fit in over there until you fit in over there. And they're rough on American kids, they were rough on American kids. Plus,
they're rough on their own kids. My husband's from Glasgow. They're rough.
Oh, there
in
you
a good
go.
way.
Yeah, exactly. They don't say scrappy Scots for nothing, but there are many wonderful things about Scottish people as well. And I really felt like Dunoon was my geographical home, and couldn't wait to return. It was a time in my life that touched me indelibly. And I feel really lucky, when you're over in the European community at that time, we spent time in Ireland, we spent time in England, and my father, may he rest in peace now, but he established his home there and stayed there. And then, we went to France, and we also went to Germany. I was young, so you remember, how your mind remembers what you saw, but you might not know exactly where you were geographically, other than, the name of the city, like
but it
Le
forms
Havre,
you
France.
as a person, because we traveled back and forth to Italy when we were little. It changes you as a person. You just literally see the world differently.
Yes, exactly. I just came from your mother country, by the way. So anyway, so that's where it was, and I remember those times with great love in my heart. And well, I go back as often as possible. Sometimes it's every few years.
When you were how many years altogether did you live there?
Oh gosh, I think like almost 10. It was almost 10 when I look back. It was 19.
Oh, that's hard. That I remember, because when I remember we used to spend every summer in Italy growing up. And then when we were 10, I guess my parents, maybe traveling with like 3 kids by then, wasn't as easy every year. And I remember I had my suitcase packed, ready for my next trip to Italy, and they weren't going. And I just felt like, I think there was a lot of drama queens stomping the feet, because when you're 10, you're just starting to were you a dreamer? Were you planning the rest of your life and all that?
Yeah. Well, I didn't, in the school itself, in St. Mun's School, they'd have the annual Christmas pageant, and I would be a shepherd. And so I would put a towel around my head with a piece of yarn and wear my bathrobe to be a shepherd, and the nativity play. And then, the Scottish Highland dancing thing really, really kind of changed my life as far as how I looked at performing. I just, had no gauge, other than that. And then also my mother was a concert pianist, and so she got this gig in Edinburgh, and so I went with her, and to that, my brother and I, and what had happened was they had a little girl drop out because she was ill, and it was lead fairy. And my mother just, I'm just sitting there listening and watching. It was fun. And my mother said, "My daughter will do it." And I was petrified. And so here I am in Scotland, all dressed in white with a little tutu to be lead fairy. And my mother's playing, and, she's playing the piano and vamping and vamping and vamping, because I was, kind of stunned. And then she said, "Come on." I'm looking down at her, and she's mouthing, and I just, don't anybody make a meme out of that. I mean it.
But you know what's striking me is that you're not asking for any of these things, but the world is going, "Come on, come on, grab the stage." And you're not even thinking about the stage. Has that been a theme? Has that happened in other parts of your life as well?
In some ways, I think television and film and those kind of things, and voice work, because these
Just to name
things
a few.
But no, I will say this: we grab our opportunities as they happen, and in
Yeah,
those instances when you're young, you kind of do what your mom says, or what
yeah,
Ms. Black the nun says, But in excuse me, other arenas, I will say I did get bitten by the performance bug. I did want to keep doing it.
yeah. When you're young, huh?
And so, but I didn't, mega actively pursue it until I got a little older and could understand more of what it entailed. But that certain things happened that would make me decide to try for something. For instance, I also felt like by the time I got to America that I was kind of dumb. I didn't know how people got cars and got houses. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So I said, "Well, I want a car. I'm in my 20s and I want a car. I'm out of school. I traveled with people for 1 year and then got accepted into the National Shakespeare Company,
Wow.
and then realized in New York, and then realized, oh my gosh, like I still want a college degree. And there was this college in New England that said, we'll take her. We have a new theater arts, speech, and film curriculum. And they gave me credit for that. So I was still able to get a college degree. And because I didn't think I shouldn't have one. I was born in 1959 and you should have a college degree.
Yeah, yeah.
And so then, when I realized in my 20s, oh, I'm out of college and I don't know how people get a car. I don't know how people have a house. And so I said, well, I better go figure that out. And so what I did was I just applied for a job in mortgage banking. And so, because someone says, well, you have to have a mortgage to have a house. And I'm
Isn't
like,
that a
oh, okay, because
shock? And nobody tells us this stuff. I remember
nobody
the
tells you
first time
anything.
because my mother was a school teacher, I assumed the entire world got summer off. And the
Mhm.
first, like, kind of like boots on the ground actual office job
Yeah,
I got, I was like, well, when does summer vacation start? It was a shock.
yeah,
And I was really old.
yeah.
Like they should
Well,
tell us these things in school, like budget,
yes, yeah.
you
So
know.
exactly. And I vie for that now. I'll talk about mentorships I do later. But what I did was I got a job in mortgage banking and kind of went up through the ranks. The next thing you know, I was, 9 years later, I'm doing rock and roll at night and running the branch during the day.
But did
And
you
so
enjoy it, the day job?
I finally realized that just because I was good at something didn't mean I enjoyed it,
Yeah.
And so when the market was up, I took I now keep in mind when I got a car, I got a little teeny car with nothing in it, but it had a lighter in it, and that was it. I put in my own stereo system and I put in my own AC. And then when I got a house, it was a teeny house because I didn't want to be so encumbered because for some reason life felt like it could be a little volatile. Like, I just felt like that could easily
So
happen.
you're a pretty
So what I
business
did was,
savvy person already. That was smart.
what I did was I got a teeny house and a teeny car and not fancy. Either one weren't fancy. Nice and tidy, but not fancy. And then when the mortgage banking market went, I took 8 months off, and everybody else with their huge houses with pools and fancy cars
Mhm.
were selling water purification systems door to door to make money. And I took 8 months off to like level out and just say, what do I want to do? So I promise this has a point, folks. I promise, because this is
And
demonstrative of
also, we're
how
not
things.
getting away from the like comment you made, like you kind of slipped in there. Oh, and at night I did rock and roll. We're not getting away from that.
Well,
I want to, I heard that.
well, so what after that 8 minutes off, I just want to tell you how the TV thing
Yes,
happened. After
yes.
that 8 months off, my birthday's Christmas Day. So I'm sitting there and it's December. And I said, well, the mall is nice at Christmas time. I'm not really a shopper. I don't like to shop. But I'm not a girl that way, I guess. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but anyway, I'm
Well,
just not
it's kind
typical that way. So anyway, so I went and I got this job at this women's clothing store just for the holiday season.
of,
And I met this gal Elizabeth, and she was funny. We both had such a wry idea about we're working in a female clothing shop. It's like these women come in and they're going on a cruise. So we like help them get their cruise wear. So then I'm sitting in the lunchroom with Elizabeth, and she said, yeah, I'm gonna quit this job now because I got to go back to college. And I'm gonna quit my other job too. And I said, oh, my part-time job for a holiday. And I said, well, what's that? And she goes, at a PBS station. And I said, oh, yeah, because I'm going back to college. And I said, Elizabeth, who's taking your place at the
You're
PBS
like,
station?
college, whatever. That's great. Good luck. What about the PBS station?
No, but I promise it was, I was not quite that
I know,
mercenary
I'm
about
joking.
it. But I just, I know, I can take it. I can take it. And so anyway, what I said was, who's taking your place? And she said, I don't know. You want me to recommend you? She said, you're not a loser, so I'll recommend you. So she got me in, and it was this wonderful, nice man named Will Farmer. And he said, the glamour part's not back here, but the thing that they gave me, the thing that she was doing was literally steering the satellites to take in all the shows like Sesame Street and everything like that, to record them in the
Wow.
morning, to air them in the afternoon for the people. So when I had 3 days to learn that from Elizabeth. And I said, Elizabeth, don't tell me why I'm pushing the buttons. I'm just sitting there at this huge console with all these decks and all these buttons. And I said, just tell me what to push, because when you leave, I got to be able to do this. Or,
That's how I learned Pro Tools, because when you go to the experts,
yep.
they really love their
Yes.
audio. And then we'll like
Yeah.
tell you for the guy that trained me, 24 hours, I'm not kidding you, on one. Okay, I see
Yeah.
this wave.
Yeah.
What
See
button
that
do I
one? Yeah.
push?
And I, at that point, I'm 30 years old. And the guy came in and he said, it's $5 an hour. That's how much this job pays. And I said, I'll take it. And so then, like I say, same thing with mortgage banking. 9 years later, I'm running the TV station. And
Wow.
then, but during the time on the way up to that, I started learning filmmaking, and I shot on motion picture film. I didn't shoot on video, even because it was right at the cusp. I got that job in January 20th of 1990. And that was right at the cusp of when it was still kind of not cool to, if you made a movie, to have it go straight to video, even if you shot it on motion picture film.
Yeah.
So I became a purist and did some, I cut my teeth on a Saturday night zombie movie, and that got picked up within 2 weeks of completion. And then I did a documentary on David Byrne and the artists on his Luaka Bop label, and that won a Remi Award at World Fest Houston.
Wow.
And so then once again, I left television. By the time you get to the top, you're like looking at budgets all the time, and you're not doing the fun stuff anymore.
So now
And
rock and
so,
roll, are you like hanging out at rock dive joints every night, like looking really cool and wearing boots and leather?
um, by obligation, yes, but that had something that happened as well. And when I was at this PBS station, I met um, um, a gentleman named Tony Holenkovich, may he rest in peace. And he did all of John Walsh's music, America's Most Wanted and Manhunter, over in Australia and stuff. And he wanted me to work with him on his material. So what that did was that bumped up that level, and the rock band that I was with knew Tony, and that's how I got introduced to him. And he came over to the place where we were rehearsing and listened and listened,
Were
and
you
he goes,
playing or were you producing in this rock band? You were singing?
yeah.
Yeah,
And so
you're like the coolest human being on earth. That is such a cool gig. I wish I could sing.
no.
That is, oh, you were totally the leather girl.
Yeah,
That's
well,
so
you had to be.
cool.
I'm a nerd, but you had to look the part if you went out in the club. And the great thing was, I was with a band that it was all guys, and they were very protective of me, so it was wonderful that way.
That's
And the
so
one thing I did
cool.
skip over, though, when I was at the PBS station, the great thing that happened was, as it pertains to voice, because we are, talking about, it is Narrator's Cup of Joe. They had me they would go get that girl back in master control. She has a good voice. Go get her. We need her to voice an interstitial. We need her to voice an underwriting thing. We need an underwriting spot. We need her to voice a PSA. And then Marty Dobelmeyer said, who's that girl back in master control? I want her to play Martha Washington in my documentary, and Sissy Spacek and Danny Glover in it. What's her name? Go back and get her. I want her to be the dying Martha Washington.
But see, but this keeps happening to you in your life. This is like, most people are like chasing and grubbing and grabbing and begging for their chance. And it just feels like the universe keeps going, get that girl Mia. Where's Mia? Mia, like, have you not noticed this? This is not the way most people's lives go.
Please remember, though, please remember that we're encapsulating a lifetime into just this time. So I'm trying to be as pertinent as possible as to how these
but things... I still think there's a theme. I talk to a lot of people, right? And there's always, before this, where's that girl doing this? There's always the, oh my God, I knocked on 6 million doors. It's funny because it seems like, I'm not saying that you didn't work or try as hard as everyone else, but what I'm saying is it feels like your focus is always on doing what's in front of you really well. And as an outskirt of that, I can't think of the word I'm looking, as a result of that, you're pulled into more of what you want. We're all focusing on getting what we want and thinking once we get it, we'll start doing it really well. It feels like you go the other way around and you do it very, very well. And then you get it.
I will say that, you know, I will say this to sort of make it more meaningful, perhaps. When I was younger, I was bullied a lot. And so, because I was just different, you know, that's how people, you know, and it was something I kind of had to just live with and adjust to. And so one of the things that I kept saying inside my head was, I don't know why this is happening to me, but I can't let it identify me and, you know, I can't believe them. I can't believe them that I'm a loser and I'm never going to make it. And, you know, these people are being mean for some reason I don't know. Yeah. And so I can't let that in. And it's, when you're little, it's hard, but and so the more time went on and the older I got, I just said to myself, and this is not a vanity precious thing, folks. I promise that. I just said to myself as I got older, because, you know, sometimes people still bully you. You're in your 20s and people are still bullying you, you know, and I'm not a pity party either. Don't worry about that. But in your head, you have to survive that. You have to make that. Yeah. There's people vying for your job. There's people who are mad that you got a promotion that they didn't get, and they're not handling it well. Trying to take your
energy, whatever energy you've got, they want some of it.
Right. So what I had to say to myself deep inside, and it's not, and as I say, it was self-preservation, not precious, like, oh, look at me, wah, wah. You know, don't make a meme out of that face either, folks. But what I had to say to my, wah, wah, wah. What I had to say. Don't give
them any ideas. They haven't clocked on to making memes
right?
Off the
They wouldn't have thought of it if I didn't say it out loud. But what I kept saying to myself is, I'm not going to be mediocre because somebody can't stand my excellence. I am not good at a lot of things, but you know what I do? I hire people who are to do those things because I can't. So there's a lot of things I'm not good at, but there are some things I am good at, and I'm not going to diminish myself and you know, I'm not braggadocious in any fashion, but I'm not going to diminish my light because someone else can't handle the flow of it.
And that goes back to what I sensed. You focus on what you're good at and what you want right now and on what you're doing. And honestly, 99% of the population, and I mean, I've done this as well, focus on what we're supposed to want, what we're told to want, what other people think about us and how fast we're going to get it. We focus on the end goal. Like as a narrator, I'm happiest when I'm in the booth narrating. When I have a book I'm prepping right now that I love so much, I just want to like stop strangers on the street and go, oh my God, see this book, seriously. Oh my God. And look at the part I'm playing. You know, you're happiest when you're focusing on what you love, but the world tells you You have to focus on who you are and who you're seen to be and who you're recognized as. So you spend all
Right.
your time, as a freelancer trying to get gigs, trying to, sell yourself,
Yeah.
trying to
Oh
email.
my gosh.
You lose
Yeah.
touch with who, and we all run into the people that are bullies eventually, one way or
Yeah.
the other, except the bullies who probably just don't even notice because they're busy. But
Yeah.
but you running into them when you were young, and also you traveling, it probably gave
Hmm.
you that strength, because it's not a
Yeah.
coincidence. The universe isn't like nicer to one person than the other. It's not like, oh, Mia comes along, she gets all the good luck. It's maybe the rest of, maybe people sense someone that's doing what they love and just doing it.
Yeah. Well, I mentor frequently. I'm a Grammy U mentor for, the Grammy Awards, and I also do day of service and for the Harmony Harmony group. I was mentor last winter, and I was talking to graduate students and students who are still, just beginning college and college graduates. And what I said to them is this, you know, you are allowed to feel comfort and joy in the pursuit of what you want to do.
Yeah.
And so many times, all around us, there are situations that constantly give us the opposite message. And so, and I said, that's the noise that I hope to be able to help you with, eradicate, in
It's a
this
part of
talk.
our culture, isn't it? It's a very,
Yeah.
it is kind of an American thing, because I don't think the things I grew up with, embrace the suck. That was the big one, embrace the suck. And I told
Wow.
myself for years,
I've
just
never
it's,
heard that.
oh my God, dieting my whole life and doing things you don't want to do and jobs I hated, embrace the suck. Do what you have to do. Just turn your brain
Yeah.
off and do it.
Well, I've heard do what you have to do.
It's a very puritanical way of thinking, that it's not supposed to
Yeah.
be enjoyable. If you're enjoying yourself, you're not doing it right.
Yeah. And see, I don't believe that. And I've had people kind of make, I know that, this sounds like, oh, well, isn't, and I don't mean that, I'm paraphrasing you this way, but it might very much sound like, oh, well, isn't that nice, Mia? But what I'm not doing for the sake of remaining in a positive place is telling you all the grind and the that was in between each one of those
Yeah.
things,
But the thing is, because you don't seem like you focus on it, it's a lesson.
yeah.
And I think that it wouldn't be an isn't that nice, Mia. I think we need to hear from people that don't think that way. Johnny Heller caught me out on a call because I was like, it's hard work. It's really hard work. You work 10 hours a day. You stand up. It's really hard work. And Johnny was like,
Yeah.
why is it so hard? It shouldn't be that hard.
Yes.
And I was like,
Yeah.
and ever since that day, I had to question myself. Why is it you're giving yourself messages that life is so hard? And
Yeah.
so it's not, oh, it's nice for you. It's your mindset, that mindset,
Yeah.
that the
Yeah.
strength of filtering people out, and the mindset,
Yeah.
and especially since you're mentoring, I think
Yes.
the positive people should unite and speak up more often, because it's a
Yeah.
cynical world. It's been telling the positive people,
Yeah.
shut up for too long.
Yeah. And I agree with that. And the other thing also is just um trying to get people to understand. I'm going to say something, copyright, trademark, my next sentence, that's a giveaway, but there are gatekeepers, and I kind
Yeah.
of didn't realize what they were called, but I just knew I have been running into them entire, entertainment career, my entire career, any career I was doing, on the way
How do
to
you deal
being
with
able
them?
to say entertainment. Do you know what I say?
Yeah.
Copyright, trademark, Mia Moravis. The gatekeepers have no power if you don't stand at their gate.
I like
And
that.
it is true. And it is
But what's the
recent
alternative?
that I
What if
have
you want
coined that
in?
phrase. Well, I actually had a pal who I really enjoyed their company, everything, we were in music world together, and not often working on things together, but sometimes. And then all of a sudden I sat down and I was like, wow, that's really weird. Like, what just went on in that phone call? I mean, and I'm all grown up, this is just a
Yeah.
couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, excuse me, what went on in that phone call? And then I went, oh, and I discovered a pattern that in these last few years, as I went up and up and up, or even perceptively
Yeah.
up and up and up a certain ladder, all of a sudden I was getting, someone saying, yeah, let's do your project. And then, crickets after that. And
Yeah, I've
such. And I'm like,
experienced
well,
that.
I don't put up with that but having had the realization, I just, that's what I told the kids when I mentored them at Harmony Group, because a gal asked that very same thing. She says, I have this person I want to work with, and they said they'd be my mentor, and they'd be my mentor, and they'd be my mentor, and that I was really talented, and they'd be my mentor. And I said, how long ago was that? She said, 2 years. I said, find somebody else. Find somebody else. Don't waste another moment. And the thing that we also have to realize is if we run into gatekeepers, and even they could be people we know and people that are nice and we've had relationships with. Relationships, you don't have to, hurl expletives or anything. Just go arm's length and get away from it. You're under no obligation to stay around someone who's trying to hold you back or hold you down. It doesn't mean you go look for that in the world.
Because they're energy thieves. They're like they're looking for the next shiny thing or whatever's going to help them. And if you're not strong in yourself, you have to be strong.
Right.
Not just once, like all the time, huh?
Exactly. And there's a controlling purpose there that they have to in their mind, I guess, because I'm not like that kind of personality. I can only surmise that in their mind, they're like, if I keep that down over here, I have control of something. If I keep that over there, and finally, I just stopped dealing with them. I wasn't rude or anything. I was just like, okay, I've had enough of that. Once I had that bing moment while I'm sitting on the couch with a cup of coffee, and I'm like, oh, pattern, get away from the pattern, And I did, and it's been so exhilarating.
Because you were strong. Have you ever heard of? There's this thing. It might be way too woo-woo for people on the call, but there's like a Russian guy that wrote a book about reality transurfing, I think it's called.
Oh, wow.
And it's quite cool. It was billed as like the psychological mindset that can allow you to time travel. I don't really get that whole part, but what I did remember from it was pendulums. And he said that different, like a business or a group of friends or a group of people that are all following the same energy and they're all in the same club, it's like a pendulum. And if you join in, you get sucked up in that pendulum. And you have to like notice, so your friends, you have to learn to clock when somebody's got an agenda or it's going to bring you into a direction, because you only have so much time and focus.
Yeah.
And you got to stop it.
Yeah. You really have to stop it. And there's you're under no obligation to be overly kind about the situation, but I always say act with a sense of decorum and just, go arm's length and get away from situations that aren't going to serve you. It doesn't mean you're mercenary. It doesn't mean you're selfish. It's just, but if you realize that there's a pattern of how someone's, kind of controlling your behavior, or kind of like a yo-yo, or we just get away from it, and then because that how do you say, that reopens your yes, because sometimes, and people that gatekeep are very artful at it. They're very artful at it, and I say to myself, gosh, can you imagine how wonderful they'd be if they put their energies being artful at something else instead of that? Because really, what virtue do you get out of keeping other people down? You don't get anything out of it unless you emotionally feel you need to do that, and then that's a whole other Zoom.
But it's a thinking, I think, that like they can't, if you threaten them, or if you show a path that's like bigger or grander or happy, it's a threat. So they feel like if they keep other people down, they'll stay up. Which is just sad. It's sad to but that's why I love your positivity, because you're protecting your own mind by always, because I think it's like a muscle. You have to keep it
Yeah.
working.
And, I have dear friends, and, I just tell them the same thing. Like I have friends who are creating, and I say to them, do what you want, write what you want, put what you want on that paper, so to speak. All the rest of it can be kind of edited and dealt with later, but do what you want, make your creativity be what you want. I am not prolific. I'm not a prolific creator. I tend to be really good as it pertains to audiobooks. That's what I first was brought in at directing and producing. And so I tend to be really good and comfortable doing that because it's I know how to and strive to bring the best out in everybody and every performer I'm working with. And so, when the microphone, so to speak, camera is turned on me, other than, back in the rock and roll days, I tend to get a little shy. So learning how to be a narrator, people used to say to me, you've done a lot of voice work. You're great. You're versatile. Be a narrator. Why don't you? And I would go, no, I don't want to narrate a whole book. I don't mind directing and producing you while you do it, but I don't want to. And then in the pandemic, I started to, and oh my gosh, boy, did I get my behind kicked, but I stuck with it.
But I admire that you started in that genre, because it's not the most, it's hardcore. How did you find the experience when you first started? Were you recording in a studio or at home?
Well, I have a central closet in the apartment that is not connected to an exterior wall. And so we just put all sorts of foam and everything in it, and the big shock blankets and all that. And I had I taught myself twisted wave, and I went through ACX at first.
So you self-produced. You learned.
I self-produced, and that happened during the pandemic because I was a Broadway producer and Broadway's down. What are you going to do, right? And I was the first audiobooks that I promise this has a point.
You don't need a point on Cup of Joe.
Okay. The first audiobooks that I was directing and producing was for author J.H. Sanderson. He has this wonderful series about the Roadhouse Sons, rock and roll meets espionage, a 1978 band. Its first book takes place in 78, and a band is recruited into espionage against their will.
That's perfect for you.
So I met him through Tony Hayes. May Tony rest in peace. I met him through Tony Hayes, J.H. Sanderson. And what I did was I was editing the books. And then I said to him, why don't we get these done as audiobooks as well? And he said, will you take care of that? And so I went and got narrators. And it's a 7-part series. 4 of the audiobooks are done. It's Roadhouse Sons, author J.H. Sanderson. So and I did those. And then when it came to Peter Eisenstatter, then I kind of slipped into cinematic audio or audio theater. A gentleman named Peter Eisenstatter had a modern day take on Greek mythology. And it was the myth of Phaeton, the myth of Bellerophon and Pegasus, the myth of Hercules, Too Much the Hero, the labors of Hercules, and the myth of Demeter. And so what I did was I was narrator of those, but I was also his executive producer, muse, as he called me. And then with that, we turned that into more like cinematic audio with sound effects and everything like that. And all through all of this, I was working with an engineer named David Tubner. So he's seen this whole gamut of things take place. Then I was asked to be in a children's podcast that was fully cinematic. And so I played a grandmama and an evil anti-superhero mama. And that was really fun. And David was in charge of that with me as far as tech goes too.
Can I ask you a question though?
Sure.
You're really good at building relationships with people, aren't you? Like it feels like you have like close relationships with everyone you work with, everyone that you build bonds with people, and it comes naturally.
Well, I try because I think it's really important. I think that these good relationships that work out, especially as it pertains to working for and with and around clients, you really need to have people that you can rely on that do a great job.
Yeah.
And so, I'm very loyal. Like, I will go to the same people over and over and over, because, as far as like the engineers and such, because and the cinematographers and B camera and sound engineers and things like that for film and television, and producers, Peter Decker Marshall, always go to him. And the reason for that is because you really need to deliver, and you need to have people you can rely upon to help you do that. And
So what
and then
crosses
friendships
over?
do evolve. Friendships do evolve from that. I will
So
always use Tom Inskeep as my cinematographer.
I see. I love that. So let me ask you, what crosses over all these industries, audiobooks, Broadway, because you mentor people.
Mhm.
What advice would you give narrators, actors,
Oh
freelancers?
gosh,
What advice would you give us?
oh golly, I may have to defer to you on that, because you're more experienced as a literal narrator than I am.
But
But
you've
do you,
seen
like
all
what?
areas though. You've seen all
Yeah,
sides of every industry. So as far as living as a creative, handling rejection, handling
I see. I see.
self-confidence, mindset, what advice
Oh my
would you
gosh.
give on that?
I can definitely tell you that my sweetheart Chris watched me be a troll under a mushroom when I would audition for things for, starting in the pandemic, when I started auditioning for audiobooks and was just rejected left and right all the time. The one book I did that was um, uh, uh, that I did do, I did, like I say, I did go through ACX, but the one book I did do was a relationship that was from several years prior. It was Thomas R. Clarke. He wrote a book called kind of horror, kind of wolf lore, kind of entrenched in Celtic lore. And he
Wow.
wrote a book called The God Provides, and he needed someone to speak Gaelic. And I had met him years ago at a Comic-Con with J.H. Sanderson, because we would go to the Comic-Cons because we make graphic novels of the Roadhouse Sun series too. And that book that last year that came out, and I did the whole thing, and I
Wow.
had to speak Gaelic in it, so I had to do the deep dive back to the childhood to get the Gaelic and Irish to come back out. Scottish and Irish Gaelic rather, to come back out. And so that was a relationship situation. He had written and said, you and Jason J.H. Sanderson had inspired me to keep going with my writing, and I did. And then he came back to me and said, I'm ready for you. And I said, oh, good golly, was I ready? I said, oh, I'm ready too. And talk about something kicking your behind, that book, behind, but I loved it. I loved it. I'm very, very proud of it. Because I had to speak Gaelic. I had to be several characters doing it. It was a situation where the more and more the book went on, the accents got stronger because the people were only around their own people,
Oh,
and
wow.
it had
Yeah.
horror in it. There was a wolf. I don't want to give it away because you might want to read it. I would very much suggest. He got the Bram Stoker nomination for that book.
Wow.
Stoker Award nomination for that
Wow.
book. So either read it or listen to it, however you please, but it's called The God Provides. And
I love that.
there's something in a well. I don't want to give it away, a monster in a well. I mean, oh my gosh, it was really, really invigorating to do it, but I didn't dare to go anywhere or do anything. I'd be in the booth and then out here mixing and mastering, and Chris would come home and did you even go outside? Did you get some fresh air today? No, but I'm almost done. I was turning into a little monster myself.
Yeah, I'm
And that was
guilty
the
of
thing.
that.
That was the thing with narrating and self-producing, is I went the deep dive. I kept deep diving, and I said, I need to, for Thomas R. Clarke, I was thrilled to do it because it was, as you say,
Yeah.
an older relationship, a relationship that, lasted all these years of just meeting way back when.
But do you find
And
it's
then
hard when you do the deep dive? Because I've got to be honest,
yes,
I mean, I read a meme the other day. It made so much sense. It was like, why do I have to leave the house after COVID? All my stuff is here. And that's kind of where I am. Like
yeah,
I I know I need to like
yeah,
start getting out. Nobody wears masks anymore,
Yeah.
and everyone's
Yeah.
saying you have to go out again. But
Yeah.
I was happy, Mia.
Yeah. Well, you're allowed to stay happy. I would endorse fresh air though. And
Occasionally.
and to answer your question about how people, how to deal with rejection and everything,
Yeah,
it's it's it it I don't like to phrase it this way, but it's inevitable. So just
yeah.
understand that that's what it is. And then, the biggest thing for me was Penguin Random House invited me to audition for something. And that was after 3 years. And I was like, oh, after being on Ahab and just constantly auditioning and not getting anywhere,
Were
I
you
got an
auditioning on
invitation.
Ahab a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought I was good, but not so. And then, and I don't mean it like precious. It was just like, oh,
No,
I
but
did a great
it's
job on that.
never, it's
Not
hard
so
because it's
much,
not good or bad though. It literally is
Yeah.
just,
It's and then I learned also it's what the authors want. Like,
yeah.
and then I auditioned for this lady through ACX, and she said we went another way, and it was between you and this other lady, and the differences were so minimal when we went the other
I
lady.
hate that. I know they're trying to
Yeah.
be nice and make you
Well,
feel better, but like, just
well,
I've
I don't know.
forgotten
I
about
mean,
you.
I
Why
like
are you reminding me?
well, the thing that I decided to accept was that she seemed really sincere. So if
Yeah,
it
they
was
are
really that
sincere and they
great, if
feel
it if it
bad.
if it wasn't that, I don't need to know. I'll just go
I'm more
away with the good
comfortable with
dream,
like the publishers. I throw the audition out and you either come back, it's a surprise one day, somebody pops up and says, "Oh my God, I loved you," and
Yeah.
that thing I'd forgotten I'd done, suddenly it's
Yeah.
mine. And if they
Yeah.
don't, I never hear again and I can pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, I think that we just have to in anything we try, like I say, I'm encapsulating how certain things happened in my life, but there
Yeah.
were all sorts of rejections and things, and and the thing that I would love to say, but it's nice to be this agent sayer, right? Great people, but great, Mia, thanks a lot. But to try to calm the noise in your head about a rejection. And it's some people say it about acting, they say about this, they say it about that. It's the numbers game,
Mm.
just keep auditioning, because every single time you get out there, somebody knows you, somebody recognizes you, you're getting yourself out there. And it's good to be the unsinkable Molly Brown, so to speak,
Because you've shined, you've done, and the way you've done it is focusing on what's in front of you and doing the best job you can. I love, do you like meditate or something? Like, how do you keep the mental strength? Do you meditate? A lot of espresso, smoke cigarettes? What's your trick?
um
Please don't say
I
meditating.
well, I'm going to tell you what I do. And this is going to sound rather silly. I have certain movies that I'll just play over and over and over. I have
Ooh,
certain show that I'll play over and over, or my sweetheart Chris got me a wonderful, like one of those glider rocking chairs, but it looks like a really nice armchair, with all cushy and nice and everything. And I'll put on music. And I live in an apartment building, so I use these now instead of, cranking it,
yeah, yeah,
and I
yeah.
just listen to music that makes me happy and keeps me invigorated. And it just kind of changes your state
And the
because,
rocking, that's somatic. That connects your body to
yeah,
that connects to
yeah,
your body and tells your body that it's safe. That's why they
yeah.
rock
And,
baby.
and, honestly, I like rocking, I went when I was in college, I went home with my roommate for Easter dinner. And so, um, Betsy started, kind of going like this at the table. And her mother just jumped on her. What are you doing? What is that? What's that? What is that? What is that? And she goes, and Betsy points to me and says, "It's her fault. She sits in a rocking chair, and all of us do now in the sorority house, right?" And her mother looks at me and turns to me and says, "You just sit there and rock for hours upon end?" And I said, "Well, it's better than smoking all the pot like the other girls do.
Right. You know what I mean? It's like you could have
Including
worse
your daughter,
roommates.
you know. Yeah. And so it was just one of these things where it was like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not hurting myself. I might be helping my abs out a little too in the process.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I do. I just I'm excitable, I can be a dichotomy, I guess. But I can get excitable, and I had to learn to not, I had friends say to me back, unsolicited, nowadays, friends that I've known for decades. And they say, God, you're so much calmer than you were back in the day. And, it made me realize I was probably like, and don't make me mad at that either.
No,
I got to
but you know
stop
what?
saying that.
But it's what I kept thinking, just seeing you online and like you're, liking posts, and you're like a benevolent, like it's my favorite thing, Mr. Rogers, look for the helpers. You're like one, and that's who you were for my speed dating that day. You were the helper. You're this like,
well, you're good, man.
There's a good energy about you, and I think we should look for, because there's so much coming at us with social media. I was telling somebody,
yes,
my email
gosh.
broke. I'm getting spam, but you have to look at it because in case you miss the job that happens to go through,
exactly,
it's hitting us all the time.
Yeah.
You need
what I try to help with people, because I do get asked, and I do get paid as a consultant. I try to go fast so that people don't have to spend, I know that there's people out there, come to my class 20 times and spend $1 gazillion. I try to go as fast as possible. The first consultation is always free, but what I try to do rapidly for people, it's always, what do you want? And how do we get you what you want? And settle all the glitter that's all around you. I never say dust. I say, we're settling all the glitter that's around you, and what is it you want? And let's go for that. You can have all the glitter. Sometimes you just have to do it a piece at a time.
is there a link? Is there a link to reach out to you for that I can put in the about notes?
Oh, yes. How about saying LinkedIn? That would be good.
Yeah.
That would be good. But what I try to do is help people get what they want, and just help them understand that it's okay to encapsulate it into steps and pieces. You can have a big piece. Do you want to do a podcast? Okay, great. Do you want to do a podcast or an audiobook? I'm tugging my ear for who. And how do you want that to evolve? And what you have is good. You've finished it. A lot of times people start things and they don't finish them. I'm always applauding people who finish. One of the things that happens as a Broadway producer is, since 2014, so I'm in my 10th year of this, there's been, people come to you unsolicited. You don't even know them. And they say, I wrote a musical and here's my musical, and will you read it and help me get it to Broadway? And, I always say what I call my friend Vita actually taught me this. She's a costumer, divine costumer. She says a compliment sandwich. And I say, number one, and I'm sincere. Number one, I'm very, very happy for you for completing a musical. I've only done it once in my life, and it's really hard. And it took me 10 years. So good for you for it not taking that long. And then I also say, I never say unfortunately, because it's not an unfortunate thing. I am in a chronology of a pipeline that's 5 years out for shows coming to Broadway, and I can't come off of those commitments. But please keep me posted. And I wish you great success, and I would love to find out how you progress. And that's a lot of messages that have gone out, because people get excited and they come to you and they don't know you. Sometimes they don't even offer a greeting of any sort, but I figure, I think people don't understand, and I didn't either until I became a Broadway producer. Just, I go to Broadway and I look and I'm enthralled with the show. Look at that show. That's so cool. I had such a great time. And until I became a producer, I didn't know the business of it. And I do that. And I do know that now. Van Deen was my mentor for Broadway. We met through the Grammys. And now he's called Van Deen, the Dean of Broadway. School is in session.
Oh, very cool. I love that.
Jose Perez coined that for him, and I still say it to him to this day. You want to talk about something that didn't go fast and didn't go easy was that writing
Did
that
you lose
musical.
hope? Did you ever lose hope at any point with it?
I wouldn't say I lost hope, but I did get exhausted. But I was like, chug it, chug, never give up, hashtag never give up, you know.
I love that. But it, you know, it's
Yeah.
the good energy and the focus. Okay, I have to ask you
Y'all,
the inevitable question.
y'all,
For the next 60 years, people that are going to watch
y'all.
this video, if you
Uh,
wanted to leave people with one piece of advice, one thing they took away from this conversation with you, what would you like to say to them?
oh gosh, I just got kind of emotional when you asked me that. Believe in yourself, create whatever you want, and no matter how dark things can seem, you are loved.
I especially love the create whatever you want. I've literally never heard anyone say that before, which is weird. It seems like it would be a meme.
Yeah.
But I love
Create
that.
whatever you want. You know, I've had people tease at me a little bit, I hope lovingly, and they said, you're kind of like Elle Woods in that movie, Legally Blonde. It's like,
You
what did she wake up
are!
one?
You so are, but in like the
No,
cool rock chick form.
no, well, they say to me, what did you just wake up one day and say, I think I'll be a lawyer, you know, like that in that movie? And I'm like, well, she's positive and
I
she
love her.
believes in herself, and you know, she really gets slammed in that movie, you
I
know,
love
and
her. I
and
love
and
her.
then and she stays in bed and eats chocolates and throws them at the TV, you know, and she let a certain situation in her life identify her, and then she ripped it away and said,
Yeah.
no, I'm not going to stay
Only for
in
five
this.
minutes. She did it for
Yeah,
5 minutes and she
well,
got on with her life.
you have to go fast in a movie, you know.
I know, but
but
I like to
but
think that Elle wouldn't waste more than 5 minutes in real life.
yeah, and you know, there's other things to you know, consider, and any business has its hard parts, entertainment including. And the biggest thing that we can do, this might be an adjunct to what I said before, that's a little less emotional, but the biggest thing that we can do is always educate ourselves properly in the arena in which we'd like to be.
Yeah.
Because your education stays with you, however you educate yourself, however you can, and your education stays with you, and no one can take away that asset base, that knowledge base from you.
That's,
And
you
so
know what, that's, you're
the
singing my song. I'm always screaming at everyone on this call that it's not about getting the job. I don't care how many books you have. I don't care if you don't even have one book yet. It's not about getting the job. It's about becoming a narrator.
yes,
You
yes,
know,
you know, I took some classes, and you know, I've had really odd things happen. Oh, do we have enough time? How much
of
time do we
course.
have? Oh, okay. I had a really funny thing happen. I was thrilled to be able to narrate a book for Learning Ally, and
Okay.
I was working with Ivo Mahal, and I have this thing. I don't know if he knows it, but everybody in the audiobook world knows that this is how I feel. I really want to work with Nick Martorelli. I don't care if it's three grunts and a giggle. I just want to work with Nick Martorelli. I
Penguin
lived, I,
Random House,
yeah.
right? Okay. I would edit,
And
if I was wrong, I would have edited that part out.
oh no, you're correct. You're correct. So Learning Ally said, you know, I was working with Ivoma Hall, and Learning Ally said, well, we want you to do that. They asked me, will you be Kat in Aurora Rising? You have to speak with an Aussie accent. And I said, do you want it really heavy? You know, not good eye, mate, not like a, you know, caricature. And I said, yes. So I said, I'll do it. I'd love to. I'd love to. It sounds very nice. And I knew about the series and everything. I hadn't read all of it yet. So as I go to look up the audio book, like I've wanted to work with Nick Martorelli like forever. And so, because he does Star Wars and all of those things. And so, don't you know, I go to look up Aurora Rising, and Amy Kaufman, one of the writers, has a post in like 2019, and she says, Nick Martorelli is our producer, and it's Penguin Random House. And like, that's the book that's out there that you can buy, and Candace malted cat. But I'm just sitting there going, oh, now come on. So it was really wonderful work, and I really, really enjoyed it. But I just thought it was so funny. Oh, I want to work with Nick Martorelli in the first Learning Ally book I get in real life.
I mean, and that is luck, because
it's on Audible, and it's him and it's Penguin Random House. And I live diagonally across Broadway from Penguin Random House.
Oh, wow.
So
so in-house recording.
The muses, deities, and gods keep you humble, let me tell you.
I do like that. I do.
Really happy. They also have a situation right now, and I've got to get back to a gal on that, that they'll clump together like 3 books for children. And so you just record them all at once too. I haven't gotten started on that because I've just, been dealing with the chronology of things that were in the pipeline first.
Your 600 other full-time jobs that you're doing. You've got like so much going on, and you don't meditate.
Well, I listen to music I like, and I watch shows I like, and I have my fancy rocking chair. Ha ha ha.
Do you schedule things? Do you have like a full-on schedule, or do you have it all in your head or in a little notebook?
You know what? I'm going to admit that I like a calendar that I can write things in. I've tried the e-calendars and I've tried the phone, and it was just, I got to get up every morning and see what the day is, because I plan the night before. Yeah. My sweetheart, Chris, is really good at, what's going on tomorrow? And he looks in his phone. For me, it's got to be organic. I got to, hold a pen. I got to write it down,
I can't do things on my phone on apps, because it's like 2 clicks away from, ooh, what's my friend doing on Facebook? And ooh, there's Instagram. Yeah, I can't be doing that.
Oh, it's funny. If you wanted me to say anything that I would say that would be an example of some type of meditation at all, it's staying away from social media, or just the apps, just the apps, putting down the device.
I'm starting to get some old Kindle books, and because it'll drive you crazy. Okay. Yeah. On that note, this is so lovely, Mia. I knew it would be. You are one of the helpers in this world, and it comes out in so many ways. You're seriously, you shine. Yeah. And I like that. I appreciate more people like that.
Oh gosh, I really appreciate that. And I've had a lot of helpers too. Gail Shallen and Byron Wagner were very helpful to me in the beginning of all of this, as it pertains to narrators and Narrator's Cup of Joe. And, and I've been helped by a lot of people. And that's the other thing I'll say to people on the call: accept help. There are people who want to give it to you. Don't feel like you don't deserve to accept help. Accept help.
Yeah. And it makes them feel good. It's a gift. So thank you so much, Mia. This is wonderful. Thank you to the audience. Mwah! I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Mia. Bye. Bye.